titans of the debate world come together for one of the most polarizing topics discussed today.
I believe that there is some kind of life that begins at the moment of conception, but the thing that we are interested in protecting is the human conscious experience.
In the red corner, we have Trent Horn, one of the leading Catholic apologists who's been on my channel and been pressed by the best of the best, from James White to yours truly. On the left, we have Destiny, the leading leftist debater who's been debating everyone on any platform, including Nick Fuentes and yours truly. And in this segment of the debate, we see Trent Horn press Destiny on if his view will cause more or less harm. We also see on if they can actually steelman the other person's position, ultimately leading to one of the few times where I see two people on opposite sides not speaking past each other.
You don't know if you're gonna have a miscarriage.
Every single time
a woman has sex,
she's
probably rushed to the hospital immediately after.
But actually getting down to the crux of their disagreement in good faith and treating each other with dignity and respect. All right, so this is Trent Horn summarizing the negative things Destiny's views would lead to.
About the objectivity, do you think in the past 2,000 years, human beings have gotten better at mathematics and our mathematical knowledge has grown?
Yes.
Okay, so our knowledge of mathematics has grown. We've gotten better at mathematics, and math is objective, right?
When you say objective, what do you mean by that?
We don't determine mathematical truths by a social contract. We
Math
discover
is all
them.
built on systems of logics, right? It's built on tautologies, right? 1 = 1, 1 + 1 = 2, and then from those tautologies we build out systems of mathematics. But it's a thing constructed with logics. I think a priori we all have logics in our head, things like non-contradiction,
But it's all
things like identity.
it's objectively true, even if it's built on these axioms.
That's
Objective
right.
with respect to systems of logics, yes.
Yeah, but we don't create the systems of logic, we discover them.
Don't create the systems of logic. When it comes to objective truth, we don't create the systems of logic, we discover them. So math is an objective truth, right? 2 + 2 is always 4.
I mean, people smarter than me will argue anti-realism versus mathematical realism. I don't know if there's like an objectively correct answer there.
Well, there's a difference between whether mathematical objects exist or not. That's, I mean...
But my understanding is mathematics is built on tautologies, that we label something as something else, and then we build it using logics that a priori we're all gifted with. All humans have some basic logics of identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle. There's like very basic, like we can't fathom something that it has contradictory properties, or we can't fathom one thing being another thing, right? And then based on those basic logical faculty, we build out
Let's get back to brass tacks.
Okay.
Whose view on a leads to more unusual cases of killing or exploiting beings? Because I asked you a bunch of questions about, and you admitted that you can create unconscious human beings, harvest their organs, make them sex dolls, kill newborns who have never been conscious. You're not sure about 1-year-olds who've lost their memories. There's no obligation to give medical care to an anencephalic child if we discovered it. I think your view leads to a lot of counterintuitive views that lead to a lot of killing and exploitation people would disagree with. Would you agree that there's more of that in your view than my view?
No.
Okay, can you give examples of where my view leads to weird cases of killing or exploiting?
Killing or exploiting, I would argue that the exploitation is forcing women to gestate and give birth to things that aren't even persons yet. So basically mandating that women, as soon as they think they might even possibly be pregnant, that they have now a moral obligation to find out if they are pregnant, and if they are, that they're forced to carry that thing to term, regardless of how many precautions they took to prevent getting pregnant. I also think we're placing...
He thinks that's evil. Listen to the contrast of the stuff that Trent Horn just called back to, right? There's some real darkness in there to the stuff that he said. Well, I think of a woman having to see a baby to full term is causing harm.
A very high burden on our medical system, where we now have an obligation to care for every single zygote up to the moment metabolism terminates. So if a woman feels like she might be having a miscarriage, that woman can't go to the bathroom and miscarry. She needs to go to a hospital immediately, even if it's 6 weeks old, even if it's 10 weeks old. That miscarriage needs to be dealt with the same way that you would operate on any living human being. You need to extract it, you need to put it in a dish, and you need to feed that and keep it alive for as long as the metabolic functions will carry on.
Well, why can't I just say hospitals are required to give a woman progesterone to help her child? We don't have the technology yet to extract an embryo.
You were asking me to give you the potential harms in your world. Now you want to reframe it in the best possible light, but I'm just saying in your world, there's hospitals and hospitals and hospitals dedicated to keeping alive potentially these 64 128 cell organisms that may never even develop into people.
That's a straw man.
So you're saying that the weirdest thing about my view is that we might care about human beings too much.
The weirdest thing, well, that's one way to phrase it, but I would argue that you're not caring about the women human beings. You're caring about the 12 cell organisms that now need to be indefinitely cared for in hospitals in petri dishes.
Well, under my view, what about those women who want those children to live? Shouldn't they be able to go to the hospital and get help?
In my view, they can go to the hospital and get help.
And I agree. That's what makes it really
so
weird.
So nothing about what you just said is
no,
exclusionary in my view,
because
right?
because your view isn't actually applied. Most people in the world outside there don't hold your view. They have a schizophrenic view. They give respect and care and legal protection to unborn humans that are wanted, and then create justification to kill the unwanted ones.
That's great.
Schizophrenic view. That's it, right? You celebrate when someone announces they're pregnant, but then even if it's 10, 12 weeks, but then you don't fully acknowledge that that's a human or that's a person. It's a schizophrenic, incoherent view. This is where they steelman both positions. All right. So this is always good in a debate. In a debate, it is important for you and I to be able to steelman the other side's argument.
Nerd, for Trent and Destiny, can you in a couple sentences steelman each other's position and explain what is most powerful about each other's position?
Well, I would say Destiny's position is that the thing that we value is human conscious experience. That is something that is unique in the world that we value. And so we should provide legal protections only to beings that have human conscious experiences. And his position is that this covers beings from 20 weeks until they permanently lose that ability, like if they're in persistent vegetative state. If I were to steelman his position, I would just turn it into Peter Singer's position on abortion, which is because I would say that what makes the human conscious experience unique is not merely that a human is conscious and is aware of light, heat, pressure, cold, sour, familiar noise, unfamiliar noise, but that they can reason, they can do things more than what animals can do. So we value the human conscious experience that is unique to human beings, no other animal has, and we only find that like from 9 months after birth until traumatic injury. So I would just say that for me, the only way to steelman Destiny's position would be to include infanticide.
Wow. So I think that's a fairly good steelman. What do you guys think?
I think transposition is essentially a teleological argument. There's a telos, there's like a design and function and purpose of a zygote from the moment of conception up to the moment of death. We have one consistent organism with its own genetic code, and the most consistent boundary to draw around the protection of that life is from the moment of its inception, the time that that unique organism is created, which is at the moment of conception, until the time of its death, which is when essentially metabolic function has ceased. Because the telos, or the design of, or the ordinary function of that particular egg is to gestate in the womb, be born into a person, grow, develop, and then eventually die as a human being.
It's pretty. I mean, they both. This is how you know this is a good debate, because they were both able to steelman each other's positions well.
What is the weakest argument you hear from the other side? Trent,
the weakest argument from the pro-choice position would just be ought to be legal because born people will suffer if it's illegal. I think that is an extremely common argument. If you brought in a bunch of people who haven't, Destiny's thought about this a lot, I've thought about it a lot. If you brought in regular people from off the street out here to defend their pro-choice view, that'd probably be their first argument. What about women? What about poverty? What about all these issues, overpopulation, whatever? The worst argument is we need to have a legal because born people would suffer without it. Of course, it's a terrible argument because it ignores, well, what are the unborn? If you're saying that you can kill a human being in the first 9 months of their life because if not doing that, you're going to suffer, well, you could think of cases of killing born children, you know.
For the same exact logic, because of economic hardship, because of things that are going to be harder on the mother, because of all these different things, same exact logic.
When we're in foster care, for example, like, oh, they're going to be addicts and prostitutes. Maybe we should just kill them so they don't have a terrible life.
Mercy killing, right?
Well, if we don't do that to toddlers, then we shouldn't do that to unborn humans if they're both equally human, have the same
That's
value.
right.
Gotcha.
So I would say that those pragmatic arguments are the worst arguments.
Destiny, what do you think?
I think the two worst ones are, one is the picture argument. I don't like if you show a picture and it's like, is this right or wrong? I feel like the best illustration of that was, I don't remember what his name was, but there was a guy that went on Charlie Kirk's show and he held up like a picture of like a 24-week embryo and he's like, is this a human? And Charlie was like, absolutely. And the guy's like, this is a pig embryo. And Charlie's like, oh, and then they got into a fight over that.
It wasn't a 24-week embryo. I think Destiny got this timeline wrong.
I think the second, the most morally reprehensible argument is I don't like, a donor kind of did it. I don't like the argument from responsibility because they almost make it sound like a child is like a negative consequence or a punishment from sex. I think that one gets really loaded because it starts to feel like they're using a child as a form of punishment to attack a woman, which is a really poor way to deal with the woman, and it's a really sad way to deal with the existence of a child.
The argument of responsibility is a bad argument? I'm so perplexed. Why is that a bad argument? Okay, so he's saying that because it makes it feel like I think we could acknowledge that children are a huge blessing while at the same time saying, if you do this act, you are opening yourself up for the possibility of a child entering your world, right? So I don't think it's a punishment. I think, like me and my wife, every time we are intimate, we open up ourselves to the possibility of another child entering. Now, we have a 2-year-old. We're not trying to have a child right now, but we're open that is a possibility. I don't think that's making the child the consequence. I think it's just to every action is a reaction.
Loaded because it starts to feel like they're using a child as a form of punishment to attack a woman, which is a really poor way to deal with the woman, and it's a really sad way to deal with the existence of a child. Like the idea that children are consequences negative of actions you take. So I think those two things are kind of negative.
But you're not a fan of bodily rights arguments for abortion that say even if it is a person, you still have the right to have an abortion. I
Correct.
mean, you don't think those arguments work.
No.
Wouldn't the basis of that be, if the unborn human being is a person, you can't abort them because you have moral duties towards them?
Yeah, but I think the moral duties, if somebody wants to talk about a form of like moral duties to other people or the de facto guardianship that you inherit over a child because you only provide care, that's one argument. But the way that it's phrased is oftentimes that, like, don't you think a woman should have consequences for having sex?
I agree with you.
Right?
It can be put very crass and sexist.
There is like a more eloquent way to make that argument. We talk about moral duties and responsibilities that I've probably made. Actually, I did against Dillahunty when I argued against that. So yeah, I would agree with that. But oftentimes it's just phrased in a really negative way that makes it.
Well, it's like you had.
Okay.
You should own up to it. When it's only levied at women, for example, and not
that's
men,
bad.
that they should support her and the child.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good debate. Shout out to Destiny and to Trent Horn. I thought that was a really good debate. I'm glad I don't have to have that debate with Destiny because I think Trent Horn kind of laid the smack down, if you ask me. And so I'm glad that he had that conversation. It was much better than the last one. And shout out to the Whatever podcast for having these. I'm supposed to be going on there at some point. Hey, this is a segment from our daily after party stream. Consider partnering with us online for as little as $5 a month to get access to these daily after party streams completely unedited. You'll also get access to our podcast as they are streamed live into the community before anyone else gets to see them, get to interact with our guests, get access to our private Discord server, and a discount code for our store for as little as $5 a month. Ultimately, that will help towards helping us continue contextualizing the gospel using media and podcast here on YouTube. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.